I threw something out on social media. I said something about I wish this person would be less inflammatory in how they spoke. And instead of the person I was talking to who intimately knew the situation saying, yeah, I do too. They said, well, but the other person does this and this, and you're justifying your behavior. Show up and live in the values that you choose. And maybe there's a perfectly good justification, but isn't it better for you to be intentional? Hey everybody, Jeff here. Before we get started, if you're getting value from the podcast, please take a moment to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. For those of you listening on podcast apps, don't forget to rate and review. Your support really helps the show reach more people, and for that, I am truly grateful. Now let's dive in.
Welcome to The Point with Jeff Spikes, the show about achieving goals, embracing growth, and finding your true path. And now, here's your host, Jeff Spikes.
Hello and welcome to The Point. This is your host, Jeff Spikes, and today you get to continue the journey of considering how you will end the year strong while just absolutely finding great success running into the new year. The idea that there's really no need for New Year's resolutions. The idea that there's no need to ever consider that you couldn't start something and follow through and drive sustained change in your life. These concepts just drift away into nothingness. And what gets replaced, right? One of the most important questions you can ask when you're removing something and no longer getting a result that you didn't want is, what do you want in place of it? What do you want instead? What does 2025 get to look like that's different from 2024? We've talked about this. So you get to consider what you're leaving behind. Well, one of the things that it's time to encourage you on is this idea that walking into the holidays, you have friends and family and loved ones and people in your life from different communities that you're going to be seeing and interacting with on some level. You may have some people in your life that you sometimes feel challenged being around. You might feel like you need to take some type of preparation in order to tolerate or put up with them. You also might be considering that there's certain people that need to tolerate you. And one of the things to think about right now, especially that's so valuable for you for closing the year and starting the new year, is to really get down to the brass tacks and just the basic element of what your values are in these relationships. What winning relationships do you have so far this year, and how are you really working in them and leveraging them to everyone's benefit? What are the relationships that you struggle with that cause you to roll your eyes from time to time or huff or feel frustrated? What are you valuing in those relationships? Because sometimes it's just a simple shift in what you're valuing when you're communicating with someone that makes all the difference in the world. Just like changing something about yourself that you'd like to see better, or shifting your identity to someone that has a different result than what you're having today. That all comes from the zone of giving yourself permission to be who you want to be. You went through a list of your goals, and if you haven't done this yet, and this is your first time here, it's not too late. You're looking at your goals for the year. You're seeing what you've accomplished. You're checking them off the list. You're seeing if there's anything that could be done to elevate those even further. And you're also evaluating any goals that you haven't quite hit yet, and you want to make sure that you can hit them by the end of the year. We talked about, and you got to consider this thought that you may have already unconsciously or semi-consciously acknowledged that I'm not going to hit that this year. And we were talking with Rodney last week about six-pack abs, and that he had put that one off. But if you remember, there was a slight shift of perspective that allowed him to realize that there's no reason why he can't go into 2025 strong, prepared to nail six-pack abs and being in phenomenal physical shape in 2025, even in the first quarter of 2025, and that idea alone can change his behavior for the holidays without taking away any joy. The idea for you here is to sink into those thought processes and those ideas. And on this week, what I want you to consider and what you get to consider is to breathe into the thought process around who you're going to be spending time with and how you can show up in a desired state, in a desired state, an emotional state, and how you want to use your tone and your posture and your words, because words are intentional. I want you to imagine the relationships that are working well, and really now take a few minutes aside and list, how are you going to acknowledge the people in your life that you appreciate, that you have really strong relationships with this holiday. If you're running busy and you're getting a lot done, how common is it for you to miss a gift or a present or a way to acknowledge somebody until it's almost too late and then you're rushing around like crazy? If you value these relationships, take a minute now, and I know you do. So take a minute now to sit down and evaluate who's touched you this year in a positive way. Who's touched your heart? Who's touched your life? Who's helped your family? Who has helped your mindset? Think about the people that you'd really like to acknowledge. It's not about giving them a gift financially. It's sometimes just about thanking them at the right time or sending them a message. Who do you want to include in your gratitude list on Thanksgiving? If you get ahead of these things, you can have a much different level of stress through the holidays, and you can feel accomplished. And you can also feel a different sense of what you want to do to participate when you've given yourself the space to come up with that. Another thought is, who is it that you really, really want to make sure they know how important they are? And what is their love language? What is their way of feeling good and knowing that you care and that they're important to you? And what is it that you could give yourself space for? If you're having a challenging time thinking of something, I personally have one that I challenge with, and I think I finally have an idea for it. And it's really fun for me that I get to do that. But there's a different level of feeling when you have a well thought out gift and a well thought out idea of acknowledging someone, because this isn't about the gift. It's about really demonstrating how important they are and how great I think they are, and elevating their gifts and their strengths and what they're doing well at. So consider that for your life. Who do you really want to touch? Now, if you're having a difficult time before you go to bed at night, when you're engaging your unconscious mind, ask yourself, what is it that I could do for this person that would have the greatest impact? What one thing could I do that would have the greatest impact and have them really knowing and understanding that I care and how important they are to me and that I love them? Whatever that list is, right? Just what is that one thing that I could do? If you want to write down the question, it can help. And in the morning when you wake up, see if you have an answer. If you don't have an answer in the morning, the first morning, keep trying it. It really shouldn't take more than about 10 days at the longest. I think the longest it's ever taken me is 5 or 6 days to have an answer. And if it's taking you longer, reach out and we'll help you through that. But you will wake up with an exciting answer, or someone in your life will show up with an idea, and all of a sudden it will be there. So think about that. Another one is, as we already mentioned, what are the people in your life that you might sometimes struggle with, that you feel less emotionally resourceful around for whatever reason, and start imagining what it would look like and feel like to be emotionally resourceful in an interaction with that person. Think about what you might want to say or do better than you have in the past to show up in the stance of what you want to. And what are you valuing when you show up with that person? In challenging relationships that you have, whether it's family member or friend, if you have an intention of wanting to improve that relationship or survive that relationship, those are two very different values. I value surviving this and feeling positive when I come through it. What's it going to take to do that? It's another question to say, I want to positively impact this relationship, feel great the whole way through. That's another value. So maybe there's some type of change you want to deliver. These are all different. These change the values of what we're doing. What does the change you're wanting to make value in itself by attempting to make change with a relationship? Consider these things and write them down and start asking yourself, leaving space open in your mind to find answers, to allow answers to show up for you. And you will maximize your relationships this year and have less stress through the holidays. There's also an election season coming up, and this is every 4 years. There's a lot of politics as well around the holidays and the results of the politics and everything else. So if that's a stressor for you, what are the messages that you can have, and what are the ways that you can positively protect yourself? What are the things that you can say if you want to engage or want to avoid conversations? What are those things? And does that change in different settings that you're in? So the idea is to end the year strong in a way where you're strolling into 2025 as powerfully as you choose. So not hitting 2025 and then turning on the steam to work really hard and get it done. Do the things now that help you start that year. So who do you expect will be important to you in 2025 that you would like to start something with now? Might be good to send them a gift, or to acknowledge them differently, or to meet up with them beforehand. It's just allowing your creative mind and your intuition to play a role in the relationships you have for the holidays and how you're going to access that. Every year, I'm involved with some group where we put together some type of a weekly check-in session online, where we get on, ever since COVID, where we get on and do some type of a connection group. And, in COVID, this started when we did these complimentary, for lack of better words. It wasn't about free or pay or anything. It was about making sure that our frontline workers, being our supply chain workers and nurses and doctors, had a place to go to vent, talk, consider ways of being better. And so we did strengths workshops and groups that were really more focused on being a support group more than anything else. We did that with clients, and we did that with clients in the health industry. And from there, we've just been doing some type of thing like that every year. The balm community, I did them with a balm community for a few years, which is that be a loving mirror method of the loving method of family recovery, which is an answer to the opiate epidemic, right? It's really trying to help families become more successful in relating to their loved ones when they get gripped by some type of a use disorder, so that they don't have to lose their loved ones if possible. They can be the most effective in being supportive and staying connected in that loving place so that they beat the odds. And we did support groups for that. So every year we do support groups. So if you're interested in a support group of some kind, or just a connection group, it's not always just about support. Sometimes it's about coming together and talking about how we can be stronger and better in our lives and in other people's lives and lead. Make sure you don't let any of those words trigger a lack of response, and just consider what it would be like to have a connection, a point of connection on a weekly basis, to make sure that you're staying in your zone. So we'll do one this year as well. I don't know where I'll plug that into or who I'll work with on it, but it will be happening. It's one of the ways that we choose at my company to engage at the end of the year, to wrap up the year and start the next year strong. And for some people, holidays are very stressful. Have holidays ever been really stressful for you? I'd love for you to share. We don't necessarily need to know what the whole story is, but if you want to share it, you can. The idea is, have you had holidays where you struggled, and are you past that to a point where you can do that? Having a conversation the other day with somebody that was talking about change and talking about facing problems and how everyone has problems. And I asked him, I said, is that true that everyone has problems? And he said, well, yeah. And so in the framework that he was discussing, sure, I could buy into that. But he says, but if you can always change things and get better, then shouldn't you someday not have any problems anymore? And there's a shift between this idea of there being a destination we're going to, or are we loving the journey? So if we're loving the journey, then it's not about, is it a problem or not? It's about, am I getting through these days, these obstacles, these events? Like, are they even obstacles? Or is it just part of the human experience that we get to breathe into and enjoy? Can we be the most flexible person in the room or in the environment, so that whatever's happening, we're in full acceptance of what it is? And when you feel triggered, or when you feel like something is grinding you the wrong way, or it's really just not landing well in your spirit, your mind, body, or spirit. How are you working with that to stay emotionally resourceful? I think one of the most powerful things that we can do for the holidays is to consider how that change and how that change happens, and how we begin to think of things differently that make us better in those moments and more effective in our lives and in others with how we handle those moments through an active response rather than a reactive. So we want to get into this action-oriented behavior and this intentional-oriented behavior that we get to question and ensure that we're living within the values we choose, not ending up in values because of all the reasons and excuses we'd end up in different values than what we would choose. There was a moment last week or week before where I threw something out on social media about, I said something about I wish that this person would be less inflammatory in how they spoke. Right. And it was about a two-sided argument, where one person always inflamed the other. And I said that to somebody and they didn't say to me, boy, I sure do too, because I was saying it from a place of encouragement and support. Like, I really wish this person would speak in a way and really get clear understanding around how they're using their words and how that is inflaming. And instead of the person I was talking to who intimately knew the situation saying, yeah, I do too. They said, well, and they started talking about the other side. But the other person does this and this and they instantly got tight and upset. How often does that happen today in our climate, in our political climate, in our climate of just change and indifference, the challenges that are happening between us as people? The idea is to show up and live in the values that you choose and not ever have to say, yeah, but they, right? If we have to say, yeah, but they, you're justifying your behavior. And maybe there's a perfectly good justification, but isn't it better for you to be intentional and not have it be just related to the intention? I challenge anyone to bring to me a situation where it's not possible to do, because even in the worst of situations, it stays intentional that no, in that behavior, this is intentionally what I do. And it's not a reaction, it's an action. It's an action because I stand for something different. And that's a big difference. So think about this, right? Just think about you're closing out your year strong. This is a really macro thought process to the bigger picture, but it is so important for you to maximize your values in your relationships and make sure that you are having the experience you choose through the holidays. And most importantly, how you're entering into that new year to have the results that you're looking for in your life. And just so you're not confused, remember that all of this work that's done is the mental work that you get to do so that you can live and be present in the moments and truly experience joy and happiness and peace and share in moments of love and expression and happiness. And whether it's listening to music or going to a friend's house or driving down the road, that you get to really enjoy those moments. It's in the work that's done to reconcile and settle how our mind works and how it loops into past, present, future that keeps us from being in the present. So you spend time considering how you're going to do these things so that you can still have results and be results oriented, and you can have less things happening that put you in an unresourceful condition or state, and more things happening that maintain your resourcefulness. So by doing this work, you're able to plan your ways of being in the moments, and you get to stay in the moments in a more centered and calm and focused way. Distractions that come along are less able to distract when you're focused and set on your path and then able to let go and just live in the moment. It's much easier to be less reactive and more active and action oriented, and just enjoy the moment when you do this. So that's it for this week. It's always a pleasure. You are an amazing person. You are fabulous, wonderful, and you are wired in a way that is so unique, better than 1 in a million. You are absolutely wonderfully and specially made. It's exciting to consider what impact you can make along the road of life as you become the best version of yourself and just be you. Just be you. That seems like a easy thing to do. Well, of course I just be me. Of course you just be you. The truth is that there's all kinds of external events that have programmed us to think a certain way. But you were born a wonderfully special being, and the world began to teach you how to fit into it. And to the degree that that's affected your authenticity and your ability to express yourself and to make the impact that you were designed to make, you get to do this work so that you can rule out the excuses and rule out the reasons you might not absolutely be that true expression of the greatest version of you that's meant to be here to do that, just that thing. Peace to all. Much love, and we will see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of The Point with me, Jeff Spikes. Please visit jeffspikes.com for everything you would need to know to engage with me offline. And lastly, thank you for your time, your attention, and your consideration. This is The Point.